The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
Jehoash, King of Israel, I see you've heard the news.
My father, the chariots of Israel, and the horsemen, what am I to do?
They're there now. I would like you to take a bow and arrows.
Okay.
Put your hand upon the bow. Open the window eastward. Shoot. The arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria. For you shall strike the Syrians in Aphek until you have consumed them. Take the arrows. Now hit the ground.
Okay, here we go.
Jehoash, you should have hit the ground at least 5 or 6 times. Then you would have made sure that you would have consumed them. But instead, you've hit them 3 times.
Embark on a journey of legacies and farewells as we uncover the compelling story of 2 Kings chapter 13. This chapter paints a portrait of transition, with a new king ascending to the throne and the impending departure of the prophet Elisha. Join us as we delve into the challenges faced by Jehoahaz, the impactful lessons from Elisha's final days, and the echoes of their experiences that continue to resonate throughout the corridors of time. As always, be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast here with your hosts,
Nakhaz Gate
and Earl Roberts. We definitely appreciate everyone who's been tuning in. So, like in real time, our trivia episode came out
last week,
and everyone liked it.
Yeah, they did.
And everyone had a lot of commentary, I guess on the side. On Instagram, there are people arguing. But the Bible is man. So I was okay, cool. I appreciate the interactions, guys. Keep it going. I was almost tempted to comment too and to poke the flame a little bit.
Yeah, I see when I wrote the caption, I had already edited the video, I had already exported and was about to click send, and I say, bro, the verbiage man made, I know somebody gonna have something slick to say. Because if we didn't say Bible or not, they could have, it just is what it is. But if you say Bible or man-made, the people who think that the Bible is man-made, it clickbaity, they wait a second, but it's what it is,
Yeah. Also, shout out to my cousin, Katura. We were just actually on her Bible study. Semi-nostalgic. Felt like the old days, just on Zoom. You know what's so funny? When I was on, when we were on the Bible podcast, the Bible study, I was literally it's a good thing the thought didn't come to our head. I wouldn't say good, but it was an interesting thing that the thought didn't come to our head. Oh, let's take the Bible study on Zoom. Because had we had done that, there would be no Breath of Fresh Air podcast right now, probably.
I think because Zoom is so new, it's that wasn't a direct thought, because people were still catching on to Zoom during the time when we was making our podcast.
Because I literally was like, yo, we literally could just tell everyone just hop on the Zoom on Friday nights and just call it good.
And that was so fun. Like I think it was so fun, bro. Like, but I know my wife has a Bible study as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, not all weeks are created equal,
Facts.
and Zoom, like you and I, we could feel the difference between in person and on Zoom when we record. It's like the energy is completely different,
Absolutely.
And it's the same with the Bible study. Like we might imagine, bro. Imagine we do an episode on a very niche part of the Bible, like let's say chapter or something, right? Or anyway, one of them, let's say a random person in Judges, and people did not read the Bible study for that week could be very quiet.
Very one-sided. It would be like a podcast.
It would be like a podcast. So now, in contrast, if we used to do an episode on Samson, people at least familiar with it, so that like just going on with the Judges theme, people at least familiar with it. So even when you talk about it, even if it's something that they don't know, they could pitch in from the perspective that they have in Samson. You know what I'm saying? But if you give us a completely different person that I've never heard of and I did not study, then it could be kind of cumbersome, trying to have an interactive Bible study when people don't understand. So I see the pros and the cons, but
definitely. But shout out to her though. Like she asked questions at the beginning, trying to make sure everyone explains their point. I was like, yo, she ain't come to play.
No, she had everybody engaged early.
Fully engaged, buddy, calling you out.
And it was a sister on as well, right?
Yeah, so like I think it was the Bible study's name is Turning Pages with Keturah and Caitlin, or Caitlin and Keturah. Sorry if I messed it up, but it's like every Friday night at 7. I'll probably even link it below in this episode so people could tune in. But yeah, man, like it was pretty good. It's her sister. I mean, I think her dad and mom always on too for like, extra support. But I mean, like I hardly join because we're always doing this on Friday nights. But like the few times I've joined, they actually have a good crowd. And it's always like good conversation. Like it's a really good interactive Bible study. And I feel like other people should like tune in too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I do think that it's actually beautiful and maybe sometimes rare, especially if you do something every week, when it doesn't become kind of mundane, Like I think about choir practice. We used to have choir practice in college. We used to have choir practice on Sabbath evening, and that was very hard because it's like you go to church, right? You Sabbath lunch. You talk to your friends, maybe go on a nature walk, and then at the end of the day, when you are most tired, on this day of rest, we go to sing. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. But then even when you have choir practice on Friday night, the week is long, and now you finally get to the Sabbath and it's time to rest. And it's choir practice. It's like a lot of times it's like, bro, it's easy for you to say, I'm just gonna prioritize my rest today, and literally anything else, But I think it's exciting and it's kind of beautiful when you see people having regular Bible studies, meeting, talking about God, or just coming together and fellowshipping, and it's still high energy. I'm still pretty good and responsive.
I agree. Like honestly, I definitely agree because it's even one of the reasons why we started our podcast, right? Like studying the Bible doesn't have to be boring and mundane. You know what I'm saying? Like you actually could study the Bible and have fun, genuine fun, talking about it, learning about it, discussing it, and actually having conversations about it. And I feel like once you make it more mainstream and more relatable to especially young people, because like we are the future. Don't disrespect our seasoned saints. But some people feel some type of way about that. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like the Bible should be fun. It's a super fun book. It's a book loaded with a lot of stories. You want drama, the Bible got it. You want action, the Bible got it. You want adventure, the Bible got it. You want love stories, people stealing someone else's wife to go sleep with them and then getting them killed. Oh, the Bible got it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Bible has it all. Musicals, the Bible got it. People dance in the street naked, the Bible got it. You know what I'm saying?
For real.
The ultimate story of sacrifice, the Bible invented it. You know what I'm saying? So like these are things that are super relatable, and it's crazy. Like these stuff were written like thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and like they're still super relatable. And so I don't see why like it's like the Bible's been I shouldn't say like under marketed, but it's been A lot of people just think it's boring.
Yeah, it's the wheat and the tares type of situation, bro.
Yeah.
Like I am so in love with that parable. Oh man,
You've been quoting that a lot lately.
bro, what? I'm
You've
like,
been
bro,
quoting that a lot lately. Just
every
thinking about
day.
it, I feel like everybody's like, yeah, it's just like a wheat and the tares situation. I think you mentioned that to me like 3 times this week. Wheat and the tares, wheat and the tares, wheat and the tares.
But it's like it's so flexible of an analogy, right? So it's like you have Fox or you have biblical accounts, right? And it gives you everything that you need. Nakhaz's opinion gives you everything you need. And then the devil turns around and say, okay, I'm going to give you such an extreme version of, it's like, let's look at like in terms of content, we have different sliders. You have emotions, you have romance, you have teaching, you have life lessons, you have maybe violence, you have all these different slides, right? The devil turns around and says, all right, I see some people, they want an unrealistic reality. So they want romance to be all the way at the top, where it's like they want the slide to go all the way up where love conquers all, no matter what happens. You know what I'm saying? Like love is going to win at the end. And some people like that. And that's why when we watch TV, we have just different genres that we more likely are inclined to like or to enjoy, right? So, but now we live in a world where there's so many different books. And these books in a lot of ways tailored to the type of genres that we like the most, right? So now we get to the Bible, where the Bible might not give you an overdose of drama to the degree that you are accustomed to. So now comparatively, you say it's boring. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at this the way Nakhaz does, my view is that the Bible is actually real people, real events. You know what I'm saying? We have some.
So you're telling me the Bible ain't fictional?
That's based on Nakhaz. If you ask Nakhaz, I believe these are real people, real events. You know what I'm saying? And so I take that for what it is. So now it's like when you watch reality TV versus in real life, you might have your whole opinion on somebody based on a show that you watch, not knowing it's scripted, and they make it seem like it's real. But then when you meet this person in real life, you're like, bro, they're not a jerk like how they are on TV, or even the opposite. You're the nicest person on TV, but bro, you're really just a mean person in real life, And so I have real life expectations of the Bible and not fictional expectations of the Bible. And I feel like sometimes, the opposite happens, and that's when people have negative opinions of the Bible. But think about it though, Earl, bro. Like imagine you watching something that's real life. Imagine you going outside for a walk and you saying, but this ain't nothing like when I put on my virtual reality headset and go for a walk. That I like that much better. No, bro, it's real life. You know what I'm saying? Like
you might actually be there.
And real talk, and I think so, And so it gets to a point where it's like you judge everything in the realm of how much it entertains you, but not everything should entertain you. Some things are constructive, some things are spiritual, etc.
That's an absolute fact, man. That's an absolute fact. And to your point too, it's just like how the devil just has watered things down for us, I feel like. Because if I can make you think your salvation, at the end of the day, is really what it is boring, then you're never going to take the time to actually get to know about it. You know what I'm saying? Or like it hurts you in some ways. It's funny, a lot of people have been offended by the Bible, but haven't actually read the Bible.
That's true.
And some of that's on us as humans. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people, for better or for worse, mostly worse, have used the Bible to oppress others, to disparage others, to judge and criticize others. And in the same book, it talks about having love. Like it always gets me is they say, if you have the truth but don't have love, you have nothing. And let that sink in. Like if you have the truth, but the truth isn't accompanied with the love, like then you have nothing. I feel like a lot of older saints need to remember that as well, because I feel like sometimes, and hopefully I'm never like that old elder in church who just seems grumpy, that kind of way too. Like, man, like it is love at the end of the day that really should that's really what the book's about. It's ultimately a story of true love. Like God loved the world so much that even through like we're at in Kings, he still shows up for them when they don't deserve it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like he still shows up for them when they don't deserve it. And that's just the ultimate story of especially what we're going through now in today's day. Like, man, the world is very, very spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, we
I
gotta
want to.
count people love.
Yeah, my bad. I want to say
Go for it.
one thing on what you're saying about the world spiraling out of control. And I realize everybody lives in their own bubble. A lot of people don't know that, hence why it's a bubble, but you might share something to me in history or tech or entrepreneurship, and this a common fact. Like everybody been talking about this all week. And you would say it to me, and I'll be like, oh yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or you might just share something that you feel like was common knowledge. And it happens to everyone. You know what I'm saying? I might talk to you about one subject, and no, I completely missed that. I didn't know that, because everybody really is in a bubble. To some people bubble bigger than others, but everybody is not aware of every single thing. But what I am noticing now in my bubble is that there is an overload of content. And I feel like social media is a key part in that, because it's media, but it's media shared by everybody. Everybody is a stakeholder in this thing, where everybody has an opportunity to share something, right? And sometimes people teach you things, but no references. You know what I'm saying? And it's like we get to a point where even journalism, you might be on Twitter, you might see a headline only, no link to a source. It might say breaking, this person is traded, or this person is arrested, da 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 da, and we just take it as fact. And that's the culture of social media right now. If a trusted source says it, that's all we need. We don't need proof. We don't need evidence. And because of that, we have so many different ways of thinking and so many different philosophies, and it's greatly competing with religion. Every day we have something new to worry about, something new to factor in as to why you believe in what you believe in. And I do feel like it's going to be a time, I feel like it's going to get worse. I feel like it's going to be a time when people who are new to the faith will have more competing topics and competing things to sift through. Now, I do believe in the text that says, seek and you shall find. If anyone asks of wisdom, come to God, he'll give it to you. You know what I'm saying? But in today's day and age, there is a lot of different opinions and a lot of intelligent people sharing these opinions, and it's easy to be swayed. And I ain't even trying to be funny, bro, but it go back to the wheat and the tares. You know what I'm saying? We have so many tares. It becomes so hard to see what's wheat,
That's a fact. That is definitely a fact. So nice segue, well, partial segue into this week's episode. So this week's episode, we are going to be focusing on 2 Kings chapter 13. And I'm sure you probably know that because the intro probably had some effect to that, or the title probably has some effect to that. But this week we're focusing on 2 Kings chapter 13. As a recap of last week, we were introduced to the boy king, as we were taught in Sabbath school, the boy King Jehoash, who became king when he was like 7 years old. And we see he played a hand in rebuilding the temple, getting rid of Baal, didn't get rid of the high places. And last week we had a good conversation about like what were the high places, their significance, and kind of why they had a hold on the Israelites and the Judeans, I guess they would be called. Never really to say their name for real. But
yeah. And he also steal from the church on the
yeah,
load to pay off his enemies.
He got scared from Hazael, who was prophesied to wreak havoc on them.
Yeah.
And
scary dude.
So said, so done. And prophecy definitely became fulfilled. So now we're in 2 Kings chapter 13. So now we see in the 23rd year of Jehoash, the son of Ahaziah, the king of Judah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, became king over Israel in Samaria and reigned 17 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord and followed the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He did not depart from them. And then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel, and he delivered them into the hand of Hazael, the king of Syria, and into the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, in all their days. So Jehoahaz pleaded with the Lord, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw the oppression of Israel because the king of Syria oppressed them. Then the Lord gave Israel a deliverer, so they escaped from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as before. So it was interesting, right? Like, are you going to say something?
No, go on, go on. I was gonna say something, but go on.
I was going to say, like, I don't think the last time we had like this phraseology, to me, I feel like was in Judges,
Judges, yeah.
but we didn't get the name of this judge. We just got like, hey, the Lord gave them a deliverer, and
That's
he
what I'm gonna say.
and he like rescued them.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. It's like, all right, so we set the stage. All right, this one in, he's a king, you know. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They say the type of evil, because they say, oh, the authors, they identify quickly what type of judge we getting, right? Why was he a bad judge? Oh, because he followed after the Ammonites, you know what I'm saying? And they, captured them and whatever. But the same thing happens here, the guy, Jehoahaz, evil, followed after the sins of Jeroboam. But then they say he sends a messenger. What they say? What's the exact
Deliverer.
term? A deliverer. But who is the deliverer? You know what I mean? I was reading this and I was like, man, this sounds like when God, like the prophecies when they say Jesus will come. You know what I'm saying? And his name shall be this and that. The Old Testament prophecies, like when they talk about Jesus, that's what it kind of sounded like, because we don't have any information on. But based on this text, I didn't really get who this guy was and what guy or lady that did and what they, how they accomplished what they did,
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, right? The whole purpose, I think, of this story was just to show that, hey, God still, in a time when the people didn't need, shouldn't say didn't need, when nothing they did deserved deliverance, God still delivered them, right? They were disobedient before it. They cried out for help. Again, God in all his grace and mercy saw, yeah, hey, being oppressed. All right, I'm gonna rise a deliverer. Deliverer doesn't get a name, we ain't told how we came up against Hazael, Ben-Hadad, none of that. Just God rose him up, delivered the people. But we're going to get into shortly. Again, just like Judges, is like the author just really trying to make us try to get us into the state of how Judges was. Just like back then, something that's hundreds of years ago, like probably millennia ago at this point, just like what was happening way back then, we once again find ourselves in a predicament. And I think that's even more poetic, right? Because when you go back to Judges and you go back to right before we had Samuel, right? When the people no longer wanted judges and wanted a king, we once again find ourselves in the same predicament as we were back then when we didn't have kings. We find ourselves once again being oppressed. It's not by the Philistines, but now it's by the Syrians. We once again find ourselves, even with the king, God starts to rise up a judge-like figure.
Mercy.
You know what I'm saying? To give us deliverance again. And immediately after, it only lasts for but so long, and we once again find ourselves doing the same thing we was doing before the deliverer was even rose up.
Well, that's a really good point, That's a really good point. So before they had a king, they had spiritual leadership, but God was their king, right? They didn't have someone in place, and so they was running around like a chicken without a head. They just was running around. And then they get to a point where they just was following all of the people around them. You all have a good religion. All right, we can check that out. And these religions don't come with blessings, because you turning away from God don't come with blessings. You know what I mean? So you all end up cursing yourselves. And when you all reap the benefits of the curses that when you all reap, which you all sow, or sowed, I can't remember grammatically was correct there. Anyway, when that happened,
Yeah, mommy can let you know.
Yeah, she can come in the chat. But you all end up crying out to God for a deliverer. When you all get what you all deserve, quote unquote deserve. And it gets to a point where it just keep happening. And they was like, man, we need a king. We need a king. Straight up, bro. I mean, Samuel, you cool, but after you, bro, we can't put up with these judges, high priest thing no more, bro. I mean, we could have a high priest, but we need a leader, bro. Now you all have it. And we could see that nothing has changed. Like, We have pockets where it was different, but now we get into a place, and it's going to be consistent from here on out, like pretty much consistent. Like there's only probably one or two more kings that we can get to that actually was good or was making sense in a way, but it can get to a point where we follow in the judge, like the similar situation with judges.
No, agreed. And so now we see in verse 6, nevertheless, they did not depart from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who made Israel sin, but walked in them, and the wooden image also remained in Samaria. For he left of the army of Jehoahaz only 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. For the king of Syria had destroyed them and made them like the dust of the threshing. All the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz and all that he did and his might, are they all not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel? So Jehoahaz rested with his fathers, and so they buried him in Samaria. Then Joash, his son, reigned in his place. Oh my, the repeating names gets me, man.
I don't know what's up with them. They're already kind of related, but now y'all, it's similar to cinema. It's similar to Adam and Seth's line and Cain's line.
Mm-hmm.
Like early in the Bible, in Genesis, where we go through the genealogies and we see the Enoshes. I think it was more than one of them. Or maybe it was more than one Enoch. But yeah, it was a Lamech. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember who else really, but they had a few names
that repeated.
I repeated. I was like, that's interesting. I mean, the world is your oyster right now. Like, it's only but so much people that ever live, bro. Like, y'all can pick all type of names.
Anything.
Y'all could invent anything, but I guess, I mean, but then, considering that these names have meanings.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. You might say, God is my rock. And then I have a child and I share the same sentiment. You know what I mean? So I can name my child, God is my rock too, So
we both toil too hard day, so we can name our child Suffering.
Real talk, Jabez. But yeah.
God. So now in verse 10, in the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah. So it's interesting. Joash, king of Judah. Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, became king over Israel and Samaria and reigned 16 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord and did not depart from all the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin, but walked in them. Now the rest of the acts of Joash, all that he did, and his might, which he fought against the Amaziah. Oh goodness, how am I struggling with this word? Amaziah, king of Judah. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel? So Joash rested with his fathers, and Jeroboam, his son, sat on the throne. And Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, which is also interesting too, because God promised Jehu that, his line is going to sit on for at least 4 generations. So we're seeing the Bible letting you know, like, hey, the promise was fulfilled. He got the 4 generations that came out, and they had decent reigns. You see, guy ruled like 16 years too, so it wasn't like no short reigns per se.
Mm-hmm.
So now in verse 14, Elisha had become sick with an illness of which he would die. Then Joash, king of Israel, came down to him and wept over his face and said, "Oh, my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen." And Elisha said to him, "Take a bow and some arrows." So he took himself a bow and some arrows, and then he said to the king of Israel, "Go put your hand on the bow." So he put his hand on it, and Elisha put his hand on the king's hands. Then he said, "Open the east window," and he opened it. Then Elisha said, "Shoot," and he shot. And he said, the hour of the Lord's deliverance, and the hour of deliverance from Syria. For you must strike the Syrians at Aphek, until you have destroyed them. Then he said, take the arrows. So he took them. And he said to the king, "Strike the ground." So he struck it 3 times and stopped. And the man of God was angry with him. And he said, "You should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Syria till you had destroyed it. But now you will strike only 3 times. Mercy. Then Elisha died, and they buried him. The raiding bands from Moab invaded the land in the spring of the year. So it was when they were burying a man that suddenly they spied a band of raiders. They put the man in the tomb of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood on his feet. Can these bones live?
Boy. Now, okay.
Kick it off.
Okay, so where you end just now? That
I
was
ended
verse
up
20?
in 21.
21. So, bro, it's interesting. Elisha is an old man, about to die now. Still got to deal with, lack of faith, I should say. But what is quite peculiar to me, though, is that obviously him only shooting 3 arrows showed that he wasn't really that confident. You know what I'm saying? Or that he probably didn't believe. But in my mind, I'm like, bro, suppose he wanted it to end in 3 tries. You know what I mean? We go to war 3 times, and the 3rd time we put an end to these people completely. You know what I'm saying? Like Elisha, look at him like, bro, I tell you, strike them till they go, and you strike them 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, he responded as if this was a lack of faith, right? But in my mind, I'm like, bro, I know it.
So what you would have done in that predicament, right? He said, strike the ground. So many times you were striking the ground. You're just going to go like bomb from Flintstones and just go bomb. Like, I
All right,
let's
make it
right?
Yeah,
like,
let's make it.
Go for it.
Let's put it into modern terms, right? Suppose you had a gun range, you got a firearm, and they say, bro, every round represents how much you can strike the enemy, not only of your nation, but of God. You know what I'm saying? You emptying the clip? That's the first thought.
But suppose you understand the analogy for real.
That's what I'm wondering. That's really what I'm wondering. Because obviously at a gun range is empty the clip. So that's probably a bad analogy because that's just what you do.
Because my thing is, right? He's saying, because like, okay, we use the same words, right? Someone's saying, bro, we can strike them at effect, right? Cool. Now you give me a stick and saying hit the ground, right? Strike the ground. I might be like, 1, 2, 3. You sure what we're supposed to be doing?
Right.
Like, what we really doing here? Now, I just, you know what I'm saying? And
but I'm saying the way,
like, bro, why you stop?
The way he responded, you could see he was angry at a lack of faith, right?
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, bro, who's to say if I fight these men 20 times, 20 was can do it? Who's can say I might have fight them once and we win? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's some information that we lack right now in this conversation because I just don't understand why that didn't suffice, but it obviously didn't suffice.
But I think also it shows that, and this could be me reading too much into it, maybe the king should have been more connected with God and probably understood what Elijah was saying. Because Elijah is also operating like, bro, you should understand what I'm saying right now. Like, this shouldn't be a guess on what I'm trying to tell you to do. But you not understanding what you need to understand causes you to not realize the fullness of the blessing that you should have. Because how Elisha talking like, bro, you should know, like, why you stop? Had you kept on going, which I thought you understood, you would have defeated them. So now you're just settling for winning a couple of battles when I was trying to get you to win the war.
I don't know. It's something that was understood that he failed to do, you know. But yeah, pretty interesting. Now, the part what I really wanted to talk about is a quick little nugget in this book that I was completely unaware of. This wasn't one of them ones where I forget. I know the story and I forget. But I think I read this at the end of 2021 for the first time. And I was like, what is going on in the Bible, bro? Like, this one of them stories, this one, as well as the prophet and the young prophet and the old prophet. You remember, I think it was in the book of First Kings. All old prophet was like, hey, I'm a prophet too. God tell me come. Them two stories really stuck with me because I'm like, bro, these are very unknown stories. Like I'm sure people know them, but they're not really that popular. People don't really talk about them. So let's get into it, right? So Elijah, the man of God, passed away. Now, one that's interesting because this man had a double portion of the spirit of Elijah, and Elijah did not see death. But Elisha, the man with a double portion, is dead. Now, I'm not having an argument on fairness, but it's a reason for all of these things. You understand? Then Elisha died, and they buried him. And the raiding bands of Moab invaded the land in the spring of the year. So it was as they were burying a man that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood to his feet. A miracle. Just like that, bro.
Absolute miracle.
That'll freak me out too, though.
Right? It'd freak anybody out. Like, let's just be honest. It'd freak anybody out. And even one more peculiar thing about this whole chapter is that the whole story is almost like a rebirth, right? From verse 14 to verse 21, these 7 verses is almost of a rebirth of sorts, because we just talked about how Joash, or which one is this? Jehoahaz, or whichever one, Jehoash, one of them, how like they just died. They're like, why not drag this, copy paste the story up, and then talk about him dying after? Why you talk about him dying, then come back? Oh yeah, this is a flashback, right? So that alone was kind of interesting. So it's almost like, oh yeah, you died, but yeah, we got this one more story to tell about you, because it also relates to Elisha dying, and then even in death, Elisha brought about life. And I really just feel like that's one of the more like forth-telling parts of the prophecy, just to show like even in death, Jesus was granting us life, because in of itself, straight up, the bones have no power. So everything, it was like God just giving a final wink at the legacy of Elisha, because the mere fact that there's just bones left, that means he's been dead a while.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the stories that, like he's been dead a while. They see the spring of the year, like it sounds like he's been dead a while. There's only bones left. They just happen to throw this guy in there. Oh, that's Elisha's cave. The guy touched the bones and got life back. Elisha's bones in of themselves have no power. It's literally that God granted that miracle to happen, I feel like, as a wink, but also foreshadow, like in death, there's going to be a prophet that's going to come soon, in the future. And his life, his legacy, when he dies, he's going to give us the power that we all might eventually grant eternal life. So I feel like it's just a foretelling thing. And even to your point too, like a story not a lot of people talk about, I feel like a lot of Christians especially, they don't talk about what they can't explain because they want to feel like they have to defend everything. So if we can't justify it or explain it, even though it's in the Bible, like a lot of people shy away from it. And I feel like that's a bad thing, because then you end up getting caught in moments of disbelief when you get challenged on your faith.
That's because you run away from it. And so I don't think it's anything wrong with saying I don't know, because like we say, we just said this a couple podcasts ago, bro. Nobody know everything, especially stuff about the divine. Like it's see, because you could say you know everything about everything, but if I ask you about demons, bro, you can't break it down, because the Bible don't talk too much. The Bible don't give you too much to describe them. You understand what I'm saying? We just know based on the New Testament that people could be possessed with demons and stuff like that. But reading the Bible or being in church as a young child, I thought I would have to deal with demons a lot as adult, but I probably do deal with them, just don't know. But it's a lot of I don't know, vague. It's very vague surrounding certain topics, and so it's okay to say you do not know. You understand what I'm saying? Don't make you less of a Christian, But if you don't know, you could realize an area of weakness where you could try to improve on that. And that's why even having the conversation earlier about the arrows and striking the ground, it's like we saying, I wonder why they say that. We familiar with this story. We could have tried our best to be like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, and give you an answer just for answering sake. But at the same time, if I'm just being honest, I do not know. I read this and I'm just like, interesting. Maybe when I get to Malachi, something might hit me that in that in one of the Old Testament books or even the New Testament, or maybe I got to read this again next year before it actually hit me, But at the end of the day, it's okay to not know, just once you try to know.
And that's a valid point. That's a valid point. I had a whole thought and I just went blank. So you have
All right, I
something to
got
say,
you.
keep going.
Yeah, I do. So now when it comes to Elisha, I'll tell you how I felt the first time I read this story about his bones reviving Ammon, right? I thought about how Elijah, so I'm reading this without not really knowing about these guys. Like I know the highlights. I know Elijah was translated. I know Elisha had a bald head. I think Shaw had a bald head. Yeah, Shaw had a bald head, right? So I knew the highlights about these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't say I was a subject matter expert or anything like that. So I'm reading it, and for the most part, I'm really being introduced to these fellas. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys, the mind, they sticking it to you, bro. They getting angry with people. They telling you, oh, if only because I value this one person, I even entertaining you. Otherwise, I was gonna tell you go away. That's what Elisha was saying to the three kings when they came talking about, battle and stuff. And so I'm like, all right, this Elisha character, I noticed, I think subconsciously, I noticed that he was pretty active compared to Elijah. He have a few more stories of the miracles that he actually was a part of or performed. And I'm like, okay, I know he didn't get translated, but when I learned about someone touching his bones and being revived, I realized that was by design that he didn't get translated. This is my thoughts. I realized that I came to the conclusion that it wasn't that Elijah was more deserving of Elisha while Elijah was translated, although that may be true. I can't speak to that. But I believe that this man is just as qualified as his predecessor, and we can see by the fact that he had a double portion of blessing. And
argue.
You know what I'm saying? And then even in his death, there's a miracle being performed. So the blessing is still upon this man, even after life. The blessing is you touch him, and that's a miracle. So the Holy Spirit's still on this man in a thick way. And so it kind of posed the questions: why didn't he get translated and Elijah did? And it could be a very long argument. When you think about Elijah looked like he did not want to be here, bro. Elijah, and you see a couple of times, he like, bro, Elijah prayed to die. You know what I'm saying? Them type of things.
Yeah.
That could be a factor, but also the reason why Elisha may not have came is for God to understand, is for God to teach us that there's not always going to be a shortcut away from the trials and tribulations of life. You understand? I think it said, Elisha died of illness. These things baffle me, bro. When men of God die of illness, I'm just like, what? Y'all healing people, but now we struck with illness? And I realized that's a trial in and of itself, bro. That's a different level. I ain't gonna say a different level, but that's a level of faith and frustration that you have in your Christian journey or in your spiritual journey with God that, like, it's hard to understand. I have been a servant and I've been helping people, but I am not above these things happening to me. You know what I'm saying? And so, it kind of, him dying and even the miracle that happened after his death, it lead me to know that, like, it kind of reassures me of how the saints were persecuted. Paul died, was killed, Stephen, etc. These were men of God, performed miracles, preaching to the world, but they still were met with persecution and, violence and evil towards them.
One would argue it's like almost a more beautiful thing that God didn't take Elisha to heaven. Because at that point, I feel like humans would have started saying, okay, Elisha did this, Elijah did this, Elisha did this. If we do this, this, and this, then we can start making it to heaven. But now you are left with this philosophical of sorts debate. Like if Elijah did this, but Elisha did twice as much as this, But but God's plan for him was to be like everyone else, get old and die. Then like, how could we expect? You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost beautiful. Like, again, at the end of the day, heaven is a gift. No one is deserving.
That's true.
To get there. No matter if you got like the parable of like the workers that got hired at different times. No matter what time you get there, like in this case, accept the gift. It doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? So like you ain't deserving of this. You ain't just because, oh yeah, I was a Christian and believed in God for like 75 years. I'm more deserving than someone who just accepted right before they died. You know what I'm saying? God's saying, no, it's up to me. I know the heart. I know I know your heart. I know who belongs in my kingdom. So I think it's just beautiful, like, because now and now this proves it. Someone who in our human way of thinking and rationalizations deserve, like if Elijah got taken up in a chariot of fire, Elisha, I don't know what he deserved.
A Bentley.
Something, a flaming Maserati. You know what I'm saying? But no, but that isn't what he got. He got the same fate, most likely me and you could get. Like, I don't know if God got a plan to take you up in a chariot. I don't know if he got a plan to take me up in a chariot, but I think, and I probably got to wait in that great resurrection morning.
That great getting up morning.
That great getting up morning. But it's beautiful because now, I mean, it almost adds some level of peace to your life, right? Because now, I think in God's infinite wisdom, we would have been more so stressing out about the things that we have to do to earn heaven versus just knowing that, hey, it's just going to be faith at the end of the day. Faith and your actions now aren't trying to work to get into heaven, but your actions now are just backing up your faith. And that's a way more peaceful way to be living your life versus stressed and pressed to get into heaven.
Very true, very true.
We had a couple more verses left, didn't we?
Yep, verse 22.
So verse 22, and Hazael, king of Syria, oppressed the Israel in all the days of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them and had compassion on them and regarded them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would not destroy them or cast them out of his presence. Now Hazael, king of Syria, died, and Ben-Hadad, his son, reigned in his place. And then Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, recaptured the land, recaptured from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz, his father, by war. 3 times Jehoash defeated him and recaptured the cities of Israel.
Mercy.
So something when I was reading this in preparing for like this week, right, that kind of struck me. And it even goes back to even before. Because I think the author of this passage was purposely making some callbacks. And I think even in this last like few verses is kind of evident. Because we see in the imagery in the first part, what were we reminded of? We were reminded of judges. The judges were before the time of David. You know what I'm saying? Before we had kings. This is the time that Israel was like. And typically in Kings so far, we were just going back to like David, like the promises God made to David. But now we've seen at the end, again, showing the state in which Israel is at. I need to bring your minds to something even more ancient of history. We see this author ain't talking about the promises to David. This author went way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's almost like we're back in Judges again. Like we have to recall something that's way back, to recall to this hope that we got from way back then, because everything recent right now is just being all downhill. Let me appeal to some greater hope that we have. Like the Lord was gracious to them and he had compassion on them and regarded them because of his covenant, not to David. No, this thing go way back before y'all was even in this land.
Mercy.
Before y'all was even called Israelites. Let me remind y'all about this covenant. Like this the real covenant I have with y'all. This is why I'm really protecting y'all. Not because of this king situation, because of something I made thousands at this point, quite literally thousands of years ago to Abraham. This is the same God, the people who y'all reading about just like us at this point in time. these are the same people who were serving me, and this is the same reason why I am your God right now. And we see like the author was really trying to make this call back to something that these Israelites were just needed to be reminded of. Like, this is the state. Like, this is the state Israel is in. Quite literally the time when they had no king.
And then it's interesting because this is Israel, right? So it wasn't from when I say Israel, I mean not Judah, the northern kingdom of Israel, I should say. And so they, for a very long time, bro, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not mean anything to Israel. I don't believe Israel, since the split of the northern and southern kingdoms, I don't believe that they've had any king to serve the Most High God. Certainly, thus far, we have not seen any, because their first king, Jeroboam, he do a number on them. And it's funny because even though the kings were interrupted by Baal worshippers, Ahab and his family, they worship Baal, so it was a different religion for a few generations. Jehu found it zealous to destroy the Baal worship so that he can resume following after the sins of Jeroboam. Because to him, Jehu, he was born and raised in the Israel of Jeroboam and Baal and stuff like that. So to his family, it was just like, bro, there come the Jesus moment was really come the Jeroboam moment. And that's just how brainwashed or how normalized those sins and that worship was. And you can see how systematically the way Jeroboam designed everything, it was set up for them not to be able to go back to Judah for any reason, even if it's spiritually going back to the time when they followed the God of Judah, you know? And so right now, so even the sons of Jehu, you know, his sons, his grandson, they're going to Jeroboam, to the sins of Jeroboam, which in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have no relevance to Jeroboam and his religion. It's an offset, you know, and Jeroboam made it a point to completely disassociate himself with the Most High God. And so right now, you can see this is very interesting, and it's kind of reminding that even though we so lost and so we just floating on a completely different path right now, this is still a part of the Bible narrative. So when you could get lost in books like Kings and Judges, especially when they get where you just have a plethora of leaders who do not serve God. You know what I'm saying? So you only hear about God sprinkle here or there when it comes time to save him. But when you read the book of Samuel, God all through there, because their leader, when it was Samuel, he served God. Even when it was David, he served God. You know what I'm saying? So you hear about God a lot. You hear about prophets a lot. But come towards the end of this book, kind of similar to like the point which you mentioned about Judges, it almost becomes like history you're reading or like a novel you're reading. And then every now and then you get this reminder right here that there is a covenant in place. And even though one group of people are not keeping their end of the bargain, meaning the Israelites, the northern kingdom, that does not mean that God will abandon his covenant. And as we can see, because of this covenant, you know, the Lord showed mercy upon them, even after they was at war with Syria. Elisha is now passed away, but before he left, he gave Jehoash, king of Israel, the opportunity to destroy the Syrians. Through a test of faith, he asked him to strike the ground with an arrow, and Jehoash neglected to strike it enough to defeat the Syrians. And if that wasn't enough, the southern kingdom of Judah is now about to declare war against the northern kingdom of Israel. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram, and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.